Good evening, everyone. Can I welcome you to this meeting of the Corporate Performance and Budget Scrutiny Committee? My name is Michael Green. I'm Vice Chairman of the committee and I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. We have committee members in the Civic Centre along with officer support. The meeting is being live streamed via YouTube and will be available on the Council's website thereafter. Little bit of housekeeping for those in the Civic Centre. No fire drills are planned. If the alarm does go off, please leave by the emergency exits at the back of the room and congregate on the car park. Please turn all mobile devices off or switch them off so that they're on mute so they don't disturb the meeting, and switch your microphones off when you are not speaking in the meeting. For those joining via Microsoft Teams, please remain muted and indicate at the appropriate time when you would like to speak, and I will endeavour to bring you in. But thank you for joining. Moving on to the agenda, apologies for absence, please.
Thank you, Chair. We've got apologies for absence from Councillor Will King, who's been substituted by Councillor Karen Walton. Apologies from Councillor Nikki Peat, being substituted by Councillor Peter Gabbert. And we've got apologies from Councillor Pete Pillinger. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you, Councillor Walton, for filling in this evening. Nice to see you, as always, on this committee, and a welcome to Councillor Gabbert. I don't think you served on this committee previously, so I hope you enjoyed the evening with us. Thank you. Item 2 is a reminder to members to declare any interest that they may have on items on the agenda, particularly if they are pecuniary items. You can declare them now. If there's nothing to declare at this stage, but you wish to declare it later in the meeting, please do so at the relevant point in time. Councillor Williams, please.
Yeah, there's some references and questions later on about Leyland Town Board. I just need to register that I'm a member of the Town Board itself.
That's absolutely fine. And for the sake of completeness, if there's any references at various points to Lancashire County Council, obviously I'm a county councillor. Put that on record, and likewise for Councillor Elworth. Thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on the 22nd of July. Seems like a long time ago now. Are we content to accept those as an accurate record?
Move those, Chair.
Moved by Councillor Elworth. Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Walton. Thank you. And that's approved unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item 4, the recommendations tracker, which is on page 13 onwards. I think members have generally commented that some of the responses are not as robust or as timely as we feel that they should be. I therefore think we should keep these recommendations live for now, and that we'll look at having a more in-depth review of the tracker before the next meeting, because scrutiny obviously has a valuable role to play and is always appreciated by this council. But for scrutiny to have its full impact, we need to make sure that recommendations are being tracked through the system and either being adopted fully by the Cabinet and the officers or not adopted, as the case may be. But we just need some clarity and some robustness. Is that okay with colleagues? Thank you. Turn to item 5 then, which is Q1 Performance Monitoring Report for 24-25. Can I give a welcome to the Leader of the Council, Councillor Jackie Alty. I think at your second meeting last time, I think you just become Leader when you appeared before scrutiny. But hopefully you've had a few weeks to settle into your role and are finding your way and starting to make a difference from your perspective. So you're very welcome this evening. And can I welcome Ollie Walmsley to the meeting as well? Ollie is the head of People, Policy and Partnership, I think, if I'm correct. So you're very welcome. Councillor Alty, would you like to say a few words by way of introduction, please?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the warm welcome too. So I'm going to propose, no, I'm not. I'm going to do something anyway with this paper in front of me. It's the South Ribble Q1 Performance Monitoring Report. So this takes place from April to June in 2024, and I'll read a few of the highlights. I'm sure we'll have some questions on the exceptions. So a summary is provided, but the highlights this quarter are the Music in the Park 2024, which featured 11 high-profile acts and showcased 19 businesses. This was our best attendance yet, with ticket sales rising to over 4,000 compared to 2,744 sold in 2023. The local event brought community together, promoted tourism, and significantly boosted South Ribble's local economy. The other highlights included health and wellbeing programme and the cost of living action plan, which provided practical support to households. A number of households in temporary accommodation this quarter has performed on target and improved when compared to this time last year. So I think I'll leave it there and allow members to ask their questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for setting out some of those highlights. Colleagues will have a number of questions, and we don't just focus on negative things, but as Scrutiny, we want to act as a critical friend to help the council to improve its performance further in the future, as we all do. So on that basis, can I bring in Councillor Alworth, please, who wishes to ask the first question?
On page 27, paragraph 17, reference is made to the council successfully hosting Music in the Park. Yep. Could you tell us how you've assessed what success is?
At this point, the success is based on community involvement as well as supporting the local economy and building on with additional and incremental attendances from the previous 2 years and looking forward to next year. We recognise that there is a cost borne in this of 102,000, and we have reduced it year on year and intend to reduce it by a greater amount this next year, hoping to break even as was planned in the 5th year of the original plan. Thank you.
So just following up on that, can we take it that in year 6 is when you might look to be making a profit?
Year 6, I would hope we've already made a profit in year 5. I'm hoping to at least break even and make a profit in year 5. But work is ongoing now for next year, and at the same time, simultaneously, we are working on the year after to get a better picture. And as I said last time when I came, we want to reshape it and make it possibly shorter, more condensed, but have good quality acts and enough to bring people in that want to watch.
Okay, thank you. There are a few more questions about Music in the Park. So the next one is with Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much and welcome. The report states the event has showcased 19 businesses, and obviously they were made reference in the past that these businesses should be from South Ribble. So how many were actually from South Ribble, and were they required to sell local produce or local products? So how many of them were actually from South Ribble?
We don't have that information on us now, but we will get it to you.
And also, it's great that the event brought the local community together, and obviously, community is a big part of what Music in the Park is about. Have we an idea of how many of the ticket sales are actually from South Ribble or people from elsewhere, and how many people are we bringing from the outside? And also, there's this significant cost to it. How affordable do you think the event is for people on low incomes?
Good questions. Do we have the numbers of percentage for?
Oh no, I was going to suggest if we want some information, like we could pull that together into something and share it in terms of breakdown of ticket sales, if that'd be useful.
You did. What was the second part to your question? Sorry.
The second part of the question was how affordable do you think the event is for people on low incomes?
Okay, so one of the ways that we make it, there's always going to be a cost, but we split the two costs and we offer a payment plan. So we try to assist as much as we can. I think we'll always outprice members of the community, which is a shame. But it's the market forces, or that you have to try and break even, you have to try and make a profit. So in order to benefit, we have to set prices at a certain level, and that is how it works. So sad though it is, I do acknowledge it is a reality and difficult for people.
Thank you. Councillor Alf?
Yeah, I was just going to come back on how far people have come from. I think when we asked this question previously, we were provided with a map with these little yellow dots on going as far as Norfolk and further afield. So perhaps if that is available, we could have a look at that.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Okay, thank you. The report says that the event significantly boosted the economy in South Ribble. What evidence is there that this actually took place? And how much of a boost are we talking about?
My notes are in the other room, so I'll apologise for that. We can get you that information because we brought it with us last time, but I'll feed that back to you. I do apologise. I did leave them in the other room. Should have brought them in. Sorry.
No, that's fine if you feed that back later. Thank you. Councillor Walton, please.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for coming to our scrutiny meeting. So the final sentence on paragraph 17 mentions considering opportunities to reduce costs and generate income. So what opportunities are you actively considering, and will this delay reflect on the cost to the council and delay plans for next May?
No, it won't delay plans for next May. It is a work in progress as we speak. We are looking for sponsors. We're also looking for different types of kind of event sellers, if you will, but from the local area. There's always going to be opportunities to make the experience more interesting. And every year we've had more and more food vendors. When I was stood there this year, I looked and I thought, well, we've got a lovely area that's all cordoned off, but we don't have anybody selling afternoon teas. Maybe that's something that we could bring in from local bakeries and patisseries. So it's just looking for those opportunities, inviting people in that enhance what's already going on. It shouldn't delay anything.
Councillor Gabbard.
Thank you, Chair. Just a further question on the music in the park. I know you referenced that at year 5 it was planned to break even. How are we doing so far compared to the plan? Is it ahead of schedule? Is it performing better than we originally forecasted?
Well, we forecasted at the start that we would tail off, that, we knew that we'd have to invest heavily to get it off the ground. And I think that the 5-year plan was whatever it started out, we would incrementally reduce it, and that has been happening. It went from 175 the year before to 102 this time. So we're heading in the right direction, and I think at a credible pace. But time will tell, and we will work hard to make that happen.
Councillor Hours.
Yeah, from memory, and I might be wrong here, so I'll stand to be corrected. Didn't we give the promoters or the organisers of this event something like a 3-year contract? And if we are now planning to make changes, I think you mentioned last time, to perhaps have more local performers or whatever, how does that sit with the contract that the people have been awarded?
The local performers was just one of a few ideas that we had that maybe reshape. Whether that goes ahead, I don't know, because that sits under somebody else's remit that we will discuss further. In terms of the agency that we use, they will continue because we're going to take them on for the next 2 so that we have continuity. And I just foresee that reshaping it, as in we shorten it, we make it as good as it was and as good as it can be. We bring external businesses in and work with partners to make it cost effective, and we produce a profit. So we'll carry on working in the same way that we've done. Local performers may be involved, but I can't confirm that at the moment.
Any further questions on music in the park? Councillor Walton.
You said that you want to perhaps condense the event and bring in different artists, but the cost of the actual coming to it was £50 last year for a basic ticket, wasn't it? Do you think that if it's not as long an event, or you don't have what we call headliners to the same extent, do you think people will still want to come?
We have every intention of having headliners, and by condensing it, it's possibly an hour, maybe two. It's not a huge amount. I went to the music on Moor Park at weekend, and the tickets ranged from, I think, £64 for a general admission to £161. And granted, there were some really good headliners, but I think as we go along and we've built up, every time you use a group of performers, you then get access to another group of performers. So I think it is a case of we've taken the decision to do it over 5 years. I think at the 5-year mark, we'll be in a much better position. And I think we'll be able to see the incremental stuff that we've done and achieved. So, yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to a different subject, Councillor Walton.
Sorry, I apologise. My question is on page 29, paragraph 25, concerning the basic skills training. Please, could you remind us why this is a key indicator and what control we have over it as a council?
I think it's a key indicator because it sits within the corporate priorities in terms of economic value and establishing a thriving community. But I think the importance part of this is most of it is outside of our control in terms of it relies on education, it relies on the remit from Lancashire County Council, but what we can influence is the partnership working, and we can contribute to that. The model is one that has become very familiar these days. It's not one that I'm comfortable with, but it is one that is used across the whole country, where we use people to, we upskill volunteers to then roll out to people who are disenfranchised and who need a bit more support, those volunteers that we've skilled up. And as I say, we're reliant upon an organisation providing the training for the volunteers that then have to provide the upskilling, and sometimes that can cause delays. But I think given that that's the model that we've got available to us, that's really the influence that we've got. We do have really good banks of volunteers, and we know now that we've got the stuff in place, and it will start, I think it's rolling out from September now. So we've got it in to influence the outcome that's noted for this year, this quarter.
So you think there's going to be additional value as a council with this indicator then? And when is it that, do you think it's the responsibility of us as a district council, or is it others' responsibility to provide this adult education?
I think education is lifelong and universal, and I think anybody who provides it is adding value to a community. So I don't have any problems with that in principle. Do I think it's useful for people to be able to access education and opportunities? Absolutely. It's one of the core tenets of this council, and particularly in terms of social justice, opportunity, thriving communities.
So what can we do directly as a council to improve the indicator, do you think, going forward?
Well, we're going to continue working with the organisation that's taken that on board. We're going to form digital champions within, but we've already done that. We've got a whole selection of digital champions within our communities. They're the ones that are going to be initially rolled out with the training, or they have been trained, and then they're going to go out to the local communities and share some more. And actually we need those local people because they feed in the data that is sound. We're not relying on a third party, we're relying on local people knowing the local needs. But I think in as much as I said I don't particularly like the fact that we're using volunteers to roll something out, using the volunteer information, which is really credible, then it is useful in that respect.
Okay, Councillor Walter, can I take you to page 31, paragraph 26, please? And that's with regard to the improvements to the Civic Centre. And the report makes a comment that significant progress has been made since the approval by Council in March 2024. I have to say I found that comment somewhat subjective. Engagement has taken place with staff on the improvements, which is to be welcomed, but could you expand on this, and why has no engagement taken place with members, particularly with regard to the proposed fixed council chamber?
I have very little to offer you on that issue. I'm going to be briefed on it. We are making moves forward. We will be going out to secure the work to be done. There have been plans displayed outside. I think there were a couple of posters a few months ago or a month or so ago that did have a design. I have been walked through the chamber and talked through the different areas, and we have talked about accessibility and making sure that those are key factors built in. I think I have one or two questions, which is possibly why it's a little bit delayed in being able to deliver that to you today, and that's regarding air quality, and as we're going into the cold months where we've got respiratory increases and things like that. So I think it's in discussion. That leader brief, I'm up to date with it in that respect, but I think the final step before we go out is still to happen.
Just to add, there is still some work that we need to do with other users of the building but obviously it's not just us that access this building. There are other partners that are using that space, and we need to make sure that they are comfortable with the changes that we will be proposing to the spaces that they utilise before we can make the next steps. But I can definitely note in terms of further consultation with members.
Thank you. And leading on from that, Councillor Walton, coming in, please.
You've answered some of my questions, but as at full council, we were led to believe that the fixed council chamber would be constructed over the summer, and obviously you explained some of the reasons why. So what implications has there been on costs and timescales with the delays, and when do you envisage the project to be completed?
I don't have that information either, so we'll make sure that you get it. Thank you.
Councillor Alworth?
Yeah, if I could. Oh no, we're on the same page. Sorry. What arrangements are being made to provide effective facilities for public participation and making sure the chamber is accessible for all?
So we're liaising with a couple of local charities that will influence the way that we think about things, because I can think about it from somebody who's hearing impaired point of view. We'll have others who have physical disabilities, there'll be others who are neurodiverse. So we're investigating with others and inviting their comments just to final touch, really, because much of the work that's already been thought about and talked about, I think, is accessible. But we just need somebody who's experienced life in with those restrictions to actually make sure that we don't miss a trick.
Sorry, I left my microphone on there. And in a similar vein, the governance committee was looking at the constitution and proposals to what we would consider shut down some questioning of the cabinet. Has that been lost somewhere, or is it ever likely to see the light of day?
From my perspective, it hasn't been lost. I don't know what the governance committee are doing with that, because I've not been to one while I've been leader. However, I can ask that question, but thank you. Thank you for the prompt.
Okay, about Councillor Alworth. Yeah. Okay, moving on to paragraph 27, the transformation programme. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you. Page 31, paragraph 27. The committee has previously recommended that members be engaged in the transformation programme that we're currently going through, and been told that this will be discussed at a leader briefing. Can you tell us how you plan to engage members on the transformation programme and the impact it will have on our residents and services, the staff, and any budget issues?
There will be a briefing. So everybody will be invited to contribute, and you'll be updated on all the relevant pieces of information. You've not been excluded. It's just been quite a slow process, but we are heading there. And you should be within the next few weeks, you will have that information.
And Councillor Williams, do you have a question on another topic?
Yeah, moving on a little bit to page 33, paragraph 32, which talks around the business energy efficiency scheme. The number of grants actually allocated seems to be quite small again this quarter against the number of businesses that are applying. So are there any barriers to the businesses actually accessing the money itself? Is there anything we can do to streamline the process or provide greater support to make sure that the money is there to take, as it were? How can we encourage more businesses to either get on board with it or get them through the application process?
So it's like any scheme, isn't it? There's always criteria and there are always barriers to get through. And you're right, given that there's 119 active expressions, it takes a little while to go from an active expression to an award. And whilst we are supporting some, others will be working their way through the process, and hopefully we'll have higher numbers in the next quarter. I think in terms of helping, we do have a really good support network here. And if local businesses do want support, we do provide it. So it may be that they're just slowly working their way through it at home, but I can ask the question and just see if there's any further information. Yeah.
On that scheme, do we work with the Chamber of Commerce?
We work with a number of agencies and partners, and yes, they're part of it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Walton, I believe you've got a question on the Leyland Town deal.
Yes, I do. Page 34, paragraph 35. The report is amber rated due to the risk of delay. Could you explain what these risks are and how they are being managed? And previously, there's also been financial risks flagged up. Have these risks been mitigated and the inflationary pressures and income model resolved yet?
Well, I can assure you that there is no further delay now. We're kind of on target. We're working towards it. The inflationary risk is built in. We should be absolutely fine. There's no anticipated excess of budget, and it is due to be built and online as we'd originally planned it in March 2026. So although there was a delay, that's kind of been made up and we're working towards it. We're not anticipating any more difficulties in that area, but who knows what can be thrown at us at a later date.
Well, do you think that any more could be done to make this project green rated, or will it always be amber because of the type of project it is?
No, I don't think it'll always be amber. I think we've had a lot of background work to do that maybe some of it was new and wasn't anticipated, but with any building development, there is always some surprises. And I think this is kind of, we've caught up with it, we're now on with, and it's in line.
Okay, Councillor Howarth, do you have a question on the residents not in employment, education or training?
Yes, on page 35, not in employment, education or training, or NEETs as it's referred to. How confident are you that the action plan will bring this indicator back on track, with there being 112 known NEETs?
In all honesty, I'm never very confident when it comes to NEET because of the nature of the difficulties that are being faced. Some people, well, we say that they're hard to reach, but actually, no, they're not hard to reach. It's just that we haven't found a way of bringing them under the banner that makes it accessible for them. So I think there's been trouble actually locating people, and there's been trouble getting them involved and wanting to get involved. And so, yeah, I can say that we're working towards it and we are making progress, but no, I won't hold my hand up and say, oh, well, yeah, we can get them all in and we can do this, that and the other, because I can't say that. That every individual is an individual. Every one of those individuals has a different need, and try as we will, we're not going to meet everybody's need. We're going to work towards it and we'll do whatever we can. But I'm not going to say we'll get everybody and we'll sort it all out.
So just come back on that. Should we not then perhaps be lowering the target or the indicator if we're not really going to achieve the one that's there?
That's a difficult one, because if we did try and lower it, we would be accused of, or possibly we may be accused of making it a little easier on ourselves. I think it's right to be aspirational. It's right to have a driver that we meet as many needs as possible. And while there is a target, it may be a little bit out of reach. It may not be. We may actually get there. But no, I don't want to change that at this moment in time. I think we need something to measure it against. It gives us a trend if we keep the same target in place. If we think that it needs changing, then that will be something that we'll do after, or while we're looking at the corporate strategy and the projects for next year.
No, I think you're right not to lower that target. It's something that we should aim for. Councillor Walton.
Yes, my question again concerns the NEAT, and it's about the Youth Employment Officer. So could you explain what intervention principles does the Youth Engagement Officer support, and is there sufficient resources to make an impact?
I think there's always sufficient resources to make an impact. Whether it's to the extent that we need, I don't know. We carry on plugging away. We go into schools, we work with the youth services, we peripatetic youth workers out and about. We have lots of people that liaise in community groups. We've got lots of community champions, all of whom can signpost. And I think it's just a case of, at this moment in time, we gather as much as we can, we drive as much as we can, because our intent is to provide access to education and future opportunities, no matter where your starting point. So I think every effort that we make is of value and adds value to our residents.
Can I also ask, there was mock interviews at Leyland St Mary's. Could this be extended to other high schools across South Ribble? I'm sure it was a worthwhile experience.
I think that's a really good idea. Yeah, the more experience that we give our young people, the better. Yeah, absolutely. We used to do it when I was at school. And I was probably one of the NEAT. So I turned up periodically. But no, I think it will be of value. More people are exposed to that environment, particularly if you are not, it's not an environment that you're comfortable in, where it becomes, you're more closely aligned with your friends. And at certain ages, that's okay. But as you get older, you need those experiences to put a question in your mind. Is this what I want? Is this where I want to go? Actually, how do I need to get there? How many barriers have I got? And if we can support people in doing the job interviews and looking at the process of what they need to do next to get to where they want to be, all the better.
They say that if a young person has 4 valuable contacts with people in the business world or whatever, that can have a massive impact on their future. Is there anything more that we can do as a council? I mean, we've got 300 officers with 50 elected members. Can the elected councillors do more to actually get some positive interventions with young people and inspire them in some way on some of those softer skills, Councillor Alter, that not necessarily the skills that are taught in a school environment, but the softer skills which are so valuable as we go through life's journey?
I think emotional education and social education, relational education is really important. That doesn't matter where it's delivered, whether it is out in community or in school. I think everybody needs to find a way where they present as somebody that someone wants to employ or somebody wants to educate. So anything that we can do in that respect is valuable. I think our councillors, some might disagree, but I think we can always do something more. We can always think of new initiatives, even if it is just sitting down, having a conversation, going to talking tables, talking to parents of, and identifying areas where they could reach into a young person's life, or have peer group parents actually skilling each other up on how do we deal with this problem. And we do have some really good groups in the area. We've got Lancashire Positive Minds who liaise with children and adults, and they share the skills that they've learned. And I think it's really difficult to give someone confidence. It's much easier to provide them with opportunities to build it. And yes, I think there's always something more that we can do. And our community champions that are already in our areas actually do a lot of that. We've got Sophie Wilding on my side, delivers fantastic youth work opportunities. And I just think celebrating what's already there and building on that will be really valuable.
Yeah, some great opportunities, and I'm sure if there's any way that we can help as a scrutiny committee, we'd be, I'm speaking on behalf of my colleagues now, but I'm sure we'll be willing to do so, because, you know, giving young people the best start in life and the opportunity to maximise their potential, whatever it may be, is so important. Okay, thank you for that. Can I take us on to the residents survey, please, which is referenced on page 39, paragraph 57. There'll be a few questions around the residents survey. Certainly some concerns when I read the findings from it, to be quite honest. But can I start off the questions? Did the resident survey just ask the questions relating to the indicators, or were there other questions as well which were asked?
These are the questions that were asked. Yeah, just relating to the indicators, yeah.
So if we didn't ask anything further, what was that a missed opportunity to actually go beyond that and to actually probe and find out what our residents actually believe?
I think that's a really good point. And actually, my concern is that we're asking questions and possibly a little bit without direction in terms of where do we go with the information that we've got. So if we're just asking to log numbers, or if we're just asking to kind of give us a tick box if they're all really good, then maybe that's not enough. And the Local Government Association, they did their own, and we kind of, on a national scale, we didn't, you know, it's not very different. The Local Government Association got slightly better scores, but they used telephones so kind of voice to voice, face to face always produces a more favourable, because we're really conditioned to be polite to each other. Whereas if it's a piece of paper or a sheet on a computer screen, well, we could just put what we like, can't we? So I think there are things about the methodology. There are things about why have we gathered that piece of information? What did we want to use it for? And not to invalidate anything on there. If that's how people are feeling, we need to recognise it's a perception scale rather than a statistical format. This is about people's opinions, and people can feel unsafe if they go out at night. That's a perception. The statistics don't necessarily reinforce that. Actually, they may open it up to further question. I think it's, do we actually need the statistics, the evidence, or are we happy with just that's the perception and let's work on the perception and let's see what we can do to reassure people? Or do we want the evidence for something more? Do we want to build from it and actually extend the cover so that our residents they don't just feel listened to, but then we act as a result? I think that we've got further work to do on this, and I'll be more than happy to move it forward. I'm not so sure I'd do it in January now. Seems to be the lowest point in anybody's year when it's been miserable for 3 months. It's going to be miserable for another. I reckon we might have a slight difference if we did it in spring, but I could be wrong.
Thank you for that. Did the survey ask any supplementary questions, which were asking for comments about why residents answered in the way that they did?
can provide a full list of all the questions that were asked. I haven't got it to hand right now, but I can provide a full list of everything that we asked residents.
Yes, if you could please, Ollie, that would be helpful. We can maybe bring that back to the next meeting of this scrutiny committee. Thank you. Councillor Alworth, please.
Yeah, I think you probably just alluded in your last answer to what I'm about to ask. But are there any further resident engagement, or is there any further resident engagement work planned to get behind some of the figures so that we can understand where and how we need to improve?
Yeah, we are building, can't remember what I called it now, but almost like a bank of residents which are demographically representative and include the protected characteristics as well as wider numbers in our communities. But what we want is to get behind the basic questions and get the narratives, understand where people are coming from. So it has to be representative in order for it to be meaningful. And yes, we do want more clear questions. We do want to expand what we've got. And if we build this bank of people that we can draw on, then we can almost justify the answers in terms of statistical evidence, as well as providing some qualitative data as well. So I think there's a lot we can do. And we do have a model bubbling away, and it will be coming out soon to do just that. Thanks.
Okay. Councillor Williams.
Thank you. Councillor Howard's last question was about getting information in and what we and what we can do. And I think my question is more about getting information out. The paragraph 65 on page 40 says what we're going to do to respond to the survey, what we'll do each year. We talk about some of the things about all 4 parks getting Green Flaggers awards, which is tremendous, and obviously all the improvements we're making to play parks and all the rest of the things that the council does. Is there something more radical we need to do to communicate that out and to improve the satisfaction of our residents, to the residents? The work we are actually doing is positive, and is there any way we can actually get that word out there and do something a bit more radical?
If you've got any ideas, I'll certainly accept them. I think our comms team worked really hard. We've developed a social justice calendar which will direct some of the information raising on certain issues over the next 12 months. That will feed into it. And every time we do something, we should have comms to go with it. We're trying to move away from paper in the interest of climate and looking after our environment. But we do recognise that some people will always need paper copies of information. I think the best method is always personal. So we hold more open surgeries, we hold more opportunities. I think in the past it was quite a regular occurrence that hubs went out into the community and demonstrated a listening ear whilst demonstrating and producing posters on what they'd already achieved as a hub. So I think there's actually a rationale for moving a little bit between the two. So we have the conversations, but we also have the delivery of face-to-face where people can question, just like they can here, the councillors. So kind of scrutinise your councillors and ask them, what, or get them to ask you, what do you want as a resident?
Councillor Williams, do you have a question on the call wait times?
This is my sort of pet subject. Is this one? So I spend all day, every day doing this as a day job. Looking at page 47, the first table, it talks about our average call wait times. There's a lot of good history there. So it's something we've asked for in the past. Is sort of comparison against previous years and things like that. So it's great to see that. Obviously we've slipped a little bit, but it's still in target around the calls answered within less than 5 minutes, and now we've been sort of achieving that quite comfortably in some quarters. Is it time to sort of review that and stretch ourselves a little bit, and perhaps bring that down to say 4 minutes or something like that? Is it something we can stretch ourselves to?
Well, if we go to the small table just above the historical data, you can see that we have stretched ourselves a little bit. We are continuing to stretch ourselves because we're moving each year onto a greater percentage of what we achieve. So I think it's really which bit do you pull, which bit do you stretch? And I think we've increased from 2023 to 24. We want to achieve a certain amount, and then 24, 25, we've increased that amount. 25, 26, we've increased it again. So you're right, we should always be striving to be better at whatever level we do. But I think we can say that we're stretching ourselves, but it's just maybe the elastic's being pulled in a different way.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the average weight. Obviously it was 55% for this year, 24, 25, and over the past couple of years, we've comfortably hit it. We're comfortably hit the 70, the target for the next couple of years. Just whether we can just sort of bring that forward a little bit. That's just basically the question. The question I was sort of asking. Obviously, when we talk about the particular quarter we've just gone through, quarter one, so the average call wait time was 3 minutes 35 seconds. I think that's on the bottom there, quarter one, 24, 25. It's still it's a minute above what it has been for the previous quarters, and people are used to receiving a consistent service. Are there any sort of resource issues that we need to deal with here? I appreciate that it is a busy time of year with council tax and bin renewals, but is there anything we need to do around peak resource forecasting and things like that we can actually bring in and actually make that customer experience better at that particular time of year?
So I've spoken with directors and asked about capacity issues, not relating to this specifically, but I have spoken and opened up a dialogue to say, are there issues that we need to address? And some of that will be fed back. But to be perfectly honest, because people are individuals and every individual is triggered by something different or has a different need, different drive, different level of understanding, different way of delivering information, and different complexity of issues, it's really difficult to predict when everything is unpredictable. But I think even when you're looking at trends, that's a questionable thing. So if it's a blood test and they're measuring a blood test all the time, then you've got a baseline and you can measure it forward because you're doing the same thing repeatedly. But every time somebody phones up, it's a different kettle of fish. And if you have council tax complexities, then that call is going to take longer. It's going to take up more time. If it's simply my bin's not been collected, or I need a new bin, or something straightforward, then the turnover can be. And what I have found is that whenever there's a national campaign on anything, whenever there's anything advertised, it pings and people then start to respond, which is how it should work. But it does mean it's even more unpredictable than normal. So it's kind of measuring it against the unpredictable is very difficult. So I take your point, and we are looking at capacity issues and different things like that. But I think it'd be really difficult ever to get it to a point where nobody's waiting at any length of time. But thanks for the question.
And just one last question. Obviously, the number of emails that we're actually getting is quite significant as well every quarter now. They've jumped quite significantly in the last 2 quarters. Have we got a service level target for emails, i.e. answer within 5 days or something like that? And if we have got a target, should we be displaying that measurement and how we're doing against achieving it?
Yeah, so this is part of our customer access charter, which I think has been presented to members. Again, I'll make sure that that's shared, and we can include in this in future as a comparison in terms of what those responses are.
Councillor Williams. Councillor Walton, please.
Yeah, it was just on page 47 on the contact centre, the calls received and called answered. I just noticed there's nearly 5,000 calls not answered. Calls answered, and the difference between calls answered and calls received is quite a lot. And I know the trend, looking at it, there is quite a difference in some of the times. Can you explain why there's a big difference in the actual number of calls received and the number of calls that are actually answered?
No, I can't at this moment in time. I think it's possibly to do with the fluctuating needs on a seasonal basis.
Right.
But I'll get back to you with that information.
Okay, thank you.
You have a further question, Councillor Watson? Yeah.
page 48, on the bottom paragraph, it says, in future reports, please could there be some examples of where we have used the feedback as a council to listen to our customers and to improve our service? It would be good to have some sort of like examples of what we've done from the feedback and how we've improved our service, if that could be included in future reports.
I think it's a really credible idea. I think we need to learn. We need real data for that. So thank you.
Yeah, I think any way that we can actually learn, I think is to be commended. Obviously, we don't like to see resident surveys with everything pretty much moving in the wrong direction. So we want to, in future, see reports where we're turning that around and starting to deliver better services. So let's hope that we can go on the path towards achieving that. So thank you for that. Okay, that brings an end to questions from members of the committee. Can I open this up to members that are not on the committee, either present in the room or on Teams? Any colleagues wish to ask any questions, please? No, that's fine. Okay, are there any members of the public? No. Okay, so can we turn then, colleagues, to recommendations on that report, please? Darren?
Thank you, Chair. Some of the themes that the committee might like to consider as recommendations. The committee thanks the Leader of the Council and Head of Service for attending and answering questions. The committee is grateful for the offer of further information on the music in the park, business participation, where visitors arrive from, and evidence of the impact on the local economy. The committee welcomes the commitment that music in the park will create a profit by year 5. The committee is grateful for the reassurance that members will be engaged in the Civic Centre Improvement Programme, including the fixed council chamber project. The committee asks for an update on the review of the Constitution and potential impact on public participation. The committee looks forward to members being invited to an engagement meeting contributing towards the transformation strategy. The committee asks that consideration be given to extending mock interviews to other schools in South Ribble, and we also consider ways in which the council can support and enrich young people's lives and development. The committee is grateful for the offer of a full copy of the resident survey results and supports the commitment to review the methodology of the survey. And finally, the committee asks that the call waiting times target be reviewed and reduced, and future reports include email response times and examples of where we have learned from customer feedback to improve services. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Darren. That's a comprehensive summary. Can I just pick up on one or two things? So Councillor Williams made the point about the target on call times, etc. And whether we think we should recommend that target be changed in some way.
Obviously, it's set at a corporate target at the minute, but like I say, it's posing a hypothetical question. It's been the critical friend as to whether we should look at it or not. Basically, just posing that question about what barriers could there be to doing it. If there's a barrier to doing it, then we can't. The target stays as it is. Then fine. I'm comfortable that we've got an action plan to reduce it. I'm just posing that hypothetical question as to whether it should be seen as we're consistently achieving. I don't want to move the goalposts if we don't need to be moved, but there's always an element of asking ourselves the question about can we improve our service.
Anyone else wish to come in? I'll allow you to come in, Councillor Alter, yes.
It's just another thought, really, another slant and a different way of looking at things, that we see that as a negative, despite the fact that we're down to 3 as opposed to 9. I wonder if our staff are actually so effective at what they do that they take on the questions and they take them to the nth degree. So we don't have many repeated calls with different matters when somebody's put the phone down and then thought, oh, I didn't say. Our operators are really clever and they draw out and measure how much information is actually being fed back. So I just wonder if that is actually a measure of success rather than failure, but that's just a different way of looking at it.
One thing I would say is like the number of calls that have come between quarter 4, 23-24 and quarter 1 are remarkably similar, if not less, at a busy time of year. So obviously some of the digital work that we're doing is obviously reducing that call impact. So that is making that it does make a big difference. Obviously website refreshes and things like that, people can find the work online. I think there is definitely something to be said about first contact resolution and things like that. You know, obviously, we've talked about anecdotal feedback about how we can actually improve services. But if the quality that we're actually getting on the phone mitigates the fact that people have to wait, then part of that is actually shown in the calls received being down. Otherwise, we'll just get more and more calls. I know there's a lot of calls that might be abandoned there, or they might be answered within the IVR that we've actually got. But you know, to actually have that level of calls actually reduce year on year at a busy time, I think is something is very positive.
Yeah, thank you. I particularly welcome the offer to get further information to us about the resident survey, because as I said previously, we need to start to turn that around. It's moving in the wrong direction. So I think further work needs to take place before and at the next committee meeting. So if that's included as an item on the next agenda. Colleagues, are we content to accept the recommendations? Yeah, thank you. Can I thank Councillor Alty and Ollie Walmsley for your attendance this evening and being frank and as full as you possibly could in your responses, and wish you well for the future and look forward to seeing you at future meetings. Colleagues, if we could take us on to agenda item 6, which is the 2024-25 capital programme and balance sheet monitoring report. And if we can welcome Louise Mattinson, Director of Finance, and Councillor Tomlinson, Cabinet Member for Finance, Assets and Commercialisation, to the meeting. Nice to see you both. You're both regulars at this meeting. Councillor Tomlinson, do you want to say a few words by way of introduction?
Yes, thank you, Chair for the evening, Vice Chair. First of all, can I apologise? I've had a bit of a summer cold. I am totally deaf in this ear. So if you see me straining in some strange body language, it's not that I've developed a nervous tic or anything. I literally can't hear anything out of this ear. And that's why I've insisted that Louise sit on this side as well, so that she can assist me if needed. If you'll permit me, I'll comment on both reports and then you can ask questions. At this stage, I give the usual caveats that this is quarter 1 of a 12-month budget. So occasionally we will get big variations in quarter 1 that we can work on. Those who were on this committee 12 months ago will remember we had some quite scary figures about overspends on things like homelessness, because what this report shows is if things that have happened in quarter 1 continue, then this will be the outcome at the end of the year. Now, obviously, that's a really useful tool for monitoring, because when things do flag up, we can address things. And so, for instance, last year, Jennifer Mullin and Claire Hunter's teams did a lot of work around homelessness. That meant by the end of the year, whilst we did overspend, it was not as big as we thought. So just give that usual caveat that this is quarter 1. As far as the capital programme and balance sheet monitoring report is concerned, you'll see in Appendix A there are some approved amendments to the programme. and in Appendix B, there are some other variations. I would argue that the variations are fairly small, actually, at this stage. There are one or two big ticket items. The spend that we were going to do on Jubilee House next door is a little bit later than we thought, affected by the wet weather over the winter. But now that the groundworks are in and we're well on up to the second floor now, the delays that we've had should be mitigated. But it does mean that some of the spend is going to happen a bit later than we thought. And the same with the town deal. But again, all that money is committed, will be spent, but it is a little bit later than we originally predicted. In terms of the balance sheet, you'll see that we've got more cash than we had this time last year, and we've got more invested than we had this time last year. So financially, we're looking reasonably robust, certainly compared to some of our district neighbours across the county and across the country. We continue to be debt-free. When it comes to the revenue report, which is item number 7, again, there are a series of relatively small variations with explanations for each of them given in the text. But we are predicting at this moment that if things continue, we'll underspend at the end of this year by some £600,000. I would have to point out that there's one major contributor to that, and that's the fact that interest rates remain stubbornly high, which is bad news if you've got a mortgage, but good news for us when we've got cash in the bank, because the amount of interest that we're earning on our investments remains higher than that, which higher than that for which we have budgeted. That was rather clumsy, forgive me for that, but I'm sure you get the drift. With those comments, I'm happy to try and address any particular questions you have, as of course with the usual assistance of Louise, should any of the questions be more detailed than I've got at my grasp.
Thank you, Councillor Thomason, for the helpful introduction as always. And can I bring in Councillor Hour for the first question, which is in relation to the Penwitham Master Plan?
Yeah, we're probably coming up to 2 years now since we scrutinised the Penwitham Master Plan and then had the Cabinet in the community. It's probably a year ago that the ward members met with officers for an update, and we're now almost at October again. So is there any reason, or could you give us a reason for the slippage with the Penwitham Master Plan?
The latest information I had, we've gone out to tender on the next stage of drawing this up. And I'm going to have to speak to probably Councillor Watkinson to get details on that. But that's my recollection of where we're up to. I'm sure we went out to tender, but I don't want to give you a part answer and then be found wanting at a later stage. So if you'll forgive me, I'll get you that latest information. These things are very frustrating. You know, we were promised the town deal money in the run up to the 2019 general election, and we're still on with it. I absolutely echo your frustration at how long these things take. Our commitment is still to deliver, but I fully understand your frustrations. But exactly where we're up to, you'll have to forgive me, and I will get you a written response.
You okay with that? Thank you. Councillor Walton, if you have a question on the town deal then, please.
Good evening. Thank you for coming. My question again is on the table on page 52, and it's about the town deal. So what is the reasoning for the reprofiling of the Leyland town deal budgets, and will it impact on the delivery timescales for the future?
Thank you. A project like this is really complicated. I think, I'm not sure if it itemises it in this report, but we've had to deal with something like 90 different property owners across the town centre, and come to agreements with all of them individually, specifically when it comes to working with the public realm. Members who've been on this council for a while and know the complications Huff Lane and its frontages and who owns what. Incredibly complicated. Some of the people who own land didn't even know they owned land in Leyland Town Centre. Some of them lived abroad. We are bringing all that together. You'll have seen this week an announcement about the market moving and the works that we're doing there. Now, whilst all that work has been going on behind the scenes and has probably taken a bit longer than we thought, in terms of the overall delivery, we're still looking at summer 26. And I think when we started on this, the public consultations, the numerous public consultations that we had back in 1920 and 2021, we were looking at late 25, 26 then. So I think as far as slippage of the overall programme is concerned, we're looking at 4 to 5 months on a 5-year programme. So I think that's not bad at all. But you're right that the money's not being spent. On the flip side of that, the fact that we're not spending the money as quickly as we thought is good for our cash balances and means we've got more in the bank earning interest. So we still want to get on to deliver. But the fact that we're not doing while interest rates are high is actually helpful for our balance sheet.
Thank you. With regard to you mentioned the moving of the market. How many market traders are not moving to the?
I'm not privy to the exact number. What I do know is each individual market trader was given the offer to move, and it was up to them to come. So I do know, without going into specifics, because I genuinely don't know the exact number, 1 or 2 have just decided that it's time to retire. And I can say that without breaking confidences, because I'm not going to say who they are. So there's a whole range of reasons. What I would say is, as a council, we've done everything that we can within the realms of financial probity to make this move happen. We're paying the owners of the King Street building a significant rent. The one ask that the market traders had at the beginning is, we want to go to somewhere together. We don't want to have 3 of us in one place and 4 of us in another. So we've spoken to them all individually. They've all been made the offer of moving. Some are making the decision not to. I think we have to respect that. That's their decision. What we said to them was, if you want to come to King Street, we will make it happen in terms of the infrastructure of the building, because some of these people need they need washing facilities, they need fridges, they need a decent electrical supply. Certainly if you're a food vendor, that's really important. So the promises were made, we would do all that, and we would configure the King Street building to make sure it could happen. At the end of the day, it's up to the individual market traders to decide whether they want to come or not. And I hope that when it becomes public who's coming or not, I hope people will respect the decisions of the individual market traders, because it will be their decision.
Yeah, thanks for that response. And it's really important that we've done so as a council, because those market traders, many of them have been there for many years, and residents right across South Ribble and beyond rely on the services that they provide, and a valuable part of our community. Thank you for that. Councillor Williams, please. Have you got a question about the conference centre?
Yeah, I have. I think it's probably related to some questions that were asked earlier on. We're talking about the conference centre hearing loop. That's in some of the slippage and some of the balances. What's the reason for this reprofiling, and what timescales are involved in installing the hearing loop in this room to ensure the accessibility?
I'm going to be really honest with you. That's passed me by. I hadn't noticed that bit in the report. So I'm going to have to get somebody to give you a response to that. I'm sure you'll know the new leader's absolute commitment to accessibility and equality and diversity and inclusion. So I can't imagine that will be any other than an unavoidable delay. But let me commit to get you a proper answer.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Thank you. Councillor Williams, have you got a separate question?
Yeah, page 56, paragraph 40. It relates to debts for sundry debtors and things like that. References made to a large balance of £2.1 million regarding Chorley Council and Lancashire County Council. What's been the delay in receiving these payments, and have they now been settled?
At that particular point in time, we just took the cut-off point at the 31st of July, and that will have included some of the bills. So obviously, because we have so many shared services, Chorley Council invoice South Ribble Council for the staff that are employed by Chorley but work on South Ribble, and vice versa. So it's a timing issue. It's just a particular point in time. So equally, there could have been another big balance the other way from the other council. And for Lancashire County Council, I don't know precisely which invoices that relates to, but we do invoice on a regular basis for various things, and sometimes it just takes a little while to chase it through their system. But overall, we don't have an issue with bad debts in relation to those bodies.
Okay, thank you. Can I take us to page 57 and the table showing the capital programme? And could you just help the committee if I can ask you to, please? So, am I right in thinking that in February, the council agreed a capital programme of £47.8 million? And Cabinet approved that programme then to be reduced down to 38.6 million. And now the proposal before us is to reduce it further to 30.9 million. Is that correct? Okay, so thank you for the confirmation of that. So can I then ask, why in the space of 6 months has the capital project been reduced by 17 million, or about a third of the overall capital programme? How reliable is our budgeting?
The eternal question, how reliable is capital budgeting? It's a difficult one. And I've always encouraged us to be realistic in our budgeting, but sometimes things do slip, and you'll see that it's not a lot of individual things that are slipping. It tends to be the larger things that move on, and I think that's just trying to reflect the realities as the year goes on. I suppose we could have left it at 47 million for the entire year, and then at the end of the year said, well, we've only delivered 2/3 of it. But we do try, and when we publish these reports, when we come to Cabinet and Council, we try and reflect the realities of what's happening, and keep us as up to date as possible. You'll see there are some quite big individual figures. The town deal, we're saying £3 million of that is not going to be delivered this year, but it will be delivered next year. So we're just moving things on in reaction to events, I think, and as things happen or don't happen. If there's a more technical answer, I'm sure Louise will be delighted to provide you with it.
No, it isn't technical. The main reduction, which I think you'll be able to see on page 62, is the budget that was approved at council under the heading opportunities for everyone, which is in the main the town deal and the master planning and regeneration at Penwitham. That the budget was 28 million pounds, and it's now down at 8. So it's not that budget has disappeared, it's just the time that it's taken, particularly with the town deal, to do the site assembly and then to progress the work. There was a lot of negotiation time that was taken, and as a consequence, that's just meant that the work has slipped back. So one of the points that the external audit has made has picked up on this in the past, because there was a situation, and it was a few years ago, where we were only doing those refinements at the year end. So now we do them on a quarterly basis. So at the moment, we're pushing funds into the following financial year into 25-26. But that's not to say as we get towards the year, towards the year end, then, you know, if Jubilee Gardens started at it was completing at a faster rate than we'd anticipated, we may need to pull back money the other way. So it's just fluid, but we're just working with the property team to make sure that the projections are as accurate as they possibly can be.
Thank you for that. But does that mean that we fail? Because every year, months and months of preparation go into putting together the budget for whoever the administration of the day is. And officers work incredibly hard in putting that budget together. Members get involved in it and all make an input into it, some more than others, obviously. And that comes to a council meeting in this very chamber. And we thrash out the budget. We have a difference of opinion on some aspects of it, but broadly speaking, there'll be broad agreement on most of what's in the budget. We set the budget, and then we spectacularly fail to deliver it. How do we improve that moving forwards so that whoever the administration of the day is, when they put their budget forward, can have more confidence that we can actually deliver that budget to a greater extent within the year?
Yeah, I think I would hesitate to use the word failure. What I would say is a lot of these things are outside our control. But I think if it comes to members, maybe there's an issue where we're really keen to announce our plans for things, pen with them, and I'm quite content to bring that. We're really keen to announce it, and figures get bandied about, and so they get put in a budget, and then actually, in reality, that project is going to take 3, 4, 5 years, and so a figure of £2 million is announced in a budget, and then when under the cold light of day, it's actually going to be £200,000 a year for the next X number of years. So I think there is a critique you could make of how some of these things are announced. But I think generally speaking, in the vast case of what we see here, it's things that are genuinely outside our control. The way, as I said, landowners in Leyland who we've had to dig a lot to find out who actually owns strips of land. It's taken weeks and months, and then contacting that person and then getting them to agree for us to have a license to work on their land. These things do take time, and sometimes you're not in control of that time. I suppose it's a bit like when you're buying a house and the conveyancing takes 12 weeks and you're thinking to yourself, well, what's going on? What's going on? Why would it take 12 weeks? Sometimes when these things get in the hands of legal or financial professionals, they take a little bit longer than I'm sure most members would like.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Walton.
Yeah, lastly, my question is, so what impact does the slippage on the capital programme have on the council's investment income and cash flow? What is the impact?
Well, it's mixed because we want to deliver things. We want to get things done for our residents and to improve the borough. So in that case, where we don't deliver as quickly as we would like, so we don't get the revamped Leyland Town Centre as quickly as we like. We're not getting high quality residential places for older people as quickly as we'd like. As I said before, when I was talking about our balance sheet, though, the flip side of that is the money that we've got to invest in these projects sits in our bank a bit longer, earns more interest, and helps us support the council tax because we've got income coming in that, frankly, we thought we wouldn't have because we thought we would have spent that money. So if you go back to the section of the report about our balance sheet, you'll see that we made we're projecting to make significantly more interest this year, not just because interest rates are high, but because for most of the year we're going to have more money in the bank than we thought we would, simply because some of these projects haven't advanced as quickly as we would have liked. So it's a mixed picture. I think you would all know my view is I get elected to this council to try and do things. So I get frustrated when the capital programme doesn't move as quickly as I would like. But there are positives to that as well. There are positives to that in terms of the fact, that we've got more money in the bank.
You've talked about, that we're getting more interest rates, but on the other hand, inflation will take up a lot of that, won't it? Because the longer the project takes, the greater the cost of the project, isn't it?
Yeah, but we are certainly in the town deal and Jubilee Gardens, we are on budget. Those projects still, with all the pressures that have been brought to bear over the last couple of years, we are still saying that those projects are going to deliver on budget. So that's really encouraging.
Okay, any more questions from members of the committee? No, can I open it up to members of the council not on the committee? Either in the room or on Teams? No further questions, and there are no members of the public present. Okay, can we formulate recommendations then, please, colleagues? Darren, could you assist?
Thank you, Chair. Just some of the themes. The committee thanks the Cabinet Member and Director for attending and answering questions. The committee looks forward to receiving an update on the pen of the Master Plan and the Conference Centre loop installation project. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, are we content with those? Do we want to add any additional recommendations? Councillor Watson?
Yeah, I think we might need to include something about the slippage. I don't know what to say, but to just make a note.
I think as a scrutiny committee we should do, yes.
But I don't know exactly
any suitable wording. Councillor Gabby, yes.
In terms of the slippage, it might be worth just asking the relevant officer or Cabinet Member just to review where the areas of slippage are happening to see if there are any trends. I think one of the things in the report was site investigation works, which you can't really plan for because it's about investigating what's there. But it might mean that the actual officers can allow more time in the project plan if that's a regular occurrence, slippage occurring because of site investigation. So I think maybe just ask as a critical friend to just review, make sure there are no trends, because as long as there are none, then there's not really an issue. It's just the terms of the budget is just lapsing a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. We're okay with that? Aaron, I've got that covered suitably. Thank you very much. Thank you for attending. And now we move on to item 7. And we once again welcome Councillor Thomason and Louise Mattison for the Corporate Revenue Budget Monitoring Report and Reserves for the 4 months to the end of July. Councillor Thomason gave an introduction to this item in his introduction to the previous one, so we can go straight into questions if that's okay with colleagues. And can I kick that off by taking us to page 66, please? And it's a bit of a continuing theme from what we just discussed. So there is an underspend set out of 0.648 million, as Councillor Thomason referred to in his introduction earlier. And whilst an underspend is better than an overspend, over 600,000 in the first quarter is a significant amount. How can we improve our budgeting moving forward?
Well, I think in my introductory comments, I did say that the vast majority of that is because we've got increased income. So whilst there are underspends and overspends across the directorates, the figure that is reported as being an underspend, actually, most of that is just because we've got extra income coming in rather than us not spending the money that we budgeted. And whilst interest rates remain high, and we continue to have more money in the bank than we thought we would, then that's the prediction that it's going to be. If budgeting was perfect, then we'd always report a zero figure, wouldn't we? But it's not. And as you said, an underspend in this term The problem with an underspend is if it was a genuine underspend within the directorates, then I guess the question a scrutiny committee might ask is, how is that underspending affecting performance? But what is happening here is that we've just got more money coming in than we thought. And so that year on year, so that will affect if things continue, will affect the overall figure at the end of the year.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, looking at page 68, bullet point 4, we talk about rent reviews, and at the last meeting we were concerned to hear about there was a delay in actually carrying out rent reviews, and now we've just seen, and now this has now led to a reported 112k overspend. Could the rent reviews be prioritised more, or is there any extra resource needed to make sure that these are carried out timely so we don't lose this level of income?
Yeah, and it's a fair comment on how the council has been run for a number of years. We made it a commitment of ours to get a grip on this probably just before COVID struck, and that's delayed everything. But you'll recall, I've mentioned before, we have purchased now a software program. It's always been my ambition, and I think I've said here in scrutiny meeting before, that I should be able to come into this building and say to somebody from our property department, tell me about the office we own at number 1 High Street in Penwitham, and they should be able to type it into a computer and tell me everything about that. Historically, that's not been possible because our maintenance people would have a file on it somewhere, and that would be kept. Our health and safety people would have a file on it somewhere, and that would be kept. And it would take a while. It would take a while, frankly, to get that information. That software has now been purchased, and I would say is something like 70% populated. We've had 2 people whose job it has been to find all that information and start populating the software, so that all these things will become automatic. So we'll know when a rent review is due, and it will be generated automatically by this software. In the past, it's needed someone to physically identify when a rent review was due, and I have to say that previous administrations have not invested enough in our property department, so there physically was no one to do that work. So we do have some properties that haven't had rent reviews for a number of years. That will all be caught up on. That might provide some challenges for us because we may have some tenants who are not happy with the rent review, but we need to be realistic. Our investment properties are there to support the council tax, but also to provide employment opportunities for our businesses and our residents. But the primary focus for me, they are investment properties that we own to support the council tax. And so it's absolutely imperative that this council gets the best return that we can from those properties. And that means ensuring that our tenants pay a fair but reasonable rate, and that means we have to keep on top of these rent reviews, and that's what we're going to do.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Alworth, please.
Yeah, if I can take you to page 68, the 7th bullet point. There's a £9,000 reduction in income from hiring out the conference centre. What's the reason for this when there's been a drive to be more commercial over recent years?
I don't know, Councillor Howard. And I will get you some facts and figures comparing last year for Q1 with this year's Q1, and we'll take a look at it.
Okay. Linked to that on page 70, paragraph 21, the 3rd paragraph, Word and Hall, so good we opened it twice, is forecasting an £80,000 reduced level of room hire income. Again, why is this, and do we have the commercial acumen as a council to generate surplus from our assets?
So what I would say about that is it's a reduction against the budget that we agreed. So we're not doing as well as we hoped at Worden Hall. We do now have several bookings. We've got 4 weddings coming up. No funerals I know of. We may well have, but we certainly got 4 weddings coming up. Your final part of your question is probably the more interesting bit. Do we have the acumen within the council to run a venue like this? And I've come to the view that we don't. We don't have the professional commercial acumen within the council to run a venue. We've tried. We through our shared services, events and tourism team to do that, but frankly, it takes more to run a wedding venue than we have got the skills to do it. Certainly at the scale that we want to do it. So the events and tourism team, they've had weddings at Astley Hall, but they are rare. They are rare events, and we have had several weddings now at Worden Hall, and we've learned a lot. But I'm happy to share with the committee that I've now asked officers to go out to the market to see if there are companies. Well, we know there are companies out there who would be happy to take on running the hall as an event venue. And so that's what we're exploring now. I'm happy to share. We employed someone specifically to do this. And it didn't work out for a variety of reasons. And they actually didn't stay very long at all. So having tried to do it in-house, I've come to the conclusion that it's probably better that we go out and find professionals who can do this, because that is what they're good at. And we do know there are people out there who do this kind of thing. So I'm hopeful we'll be able to come to an agreement with a professional company to run the hall. And that just makes it, frankly, it makes it a lot easier for us as well. But we can't have a flagship venue like that being run by staff who, as well-meaning and as hard-working as they are, don't have the experience to run an event so important as someone's wedding. My daughter-in-law works for a high-end venue in Lancashire, and she knows what it takes and how dealing with brides and brides' mothers can be. And frankly, we have found that we probably don't have that level of expertise. So we were going to find someone who does. What I would say is, coming back to this, yes, revenue is down on what we budgeted, but we are now making significant revenue from both Worden Hall and the craft units, which are now fully occupied. We've got some new tenants in there. El Tano is a new venue. The Folly is paying us significantly more in rent than they used to do when they were in the smaller unit. The commercial offices upstairs are now let out and paying us revenue. So we are making more money than we made out of Worden Hall, but it's right to say we're not making as much as we wanted.
Okay, thank you for that full and frank response. Really helpful. Councillor Walton, please.
Would we be able to have a breakdown of income for the Worden Hall? You know, it might be something that we'd be interested in. Some of the details, of how, and perhaps, how much the cost of employing a company to do a wedding, which I understand why, but what the cost implications would be to the council to employ somebody like that.
In terms of the event manager or whatever you want to call them, obviously, I haven't got that details yet because we are going out to the market. There will be a cost, but obviously it has to be a cost that's covered by us renting the place out with a small profit for us. In terms of the actual revenue we're currently getting, I asked for that in advance of this meeting because I thought that might come up, and I've got a piece of paper that I'm willing to share with members outside this meeting, but I can get copies of that.
That would be good, thank you. So my question again is on page 81 and 82, and it's about the current staff vacancies, which you provide on every report. And looking at the underspending staffing mentioned throughout the report, which it does, and in some areas it's quite a lot of underspend. The number of vacant posts is relatively small. Does this mean there is not the same level of underspends in future quarters? And I notice on page 82 on the communities it says post description. There is no post description, and shared services nil, obviously, and it doesn't give us any information about what posts are vacant on the communities.
I understand there's an officer behind me who's more than willing to answer that question.
If you just look on the page above it, it's actually been duplicated. So that table shouldn't have been in there, but they're included in the table above it.
It's just hard when you're looking at it and it looks as though we've got all these vacancies, but there's no information for us to look at. So could we make sure that that's included in future? And does it, will we have the same levels of underspends in the future?
There will always be some underspend because try as we might, we're never fully staffed because people come and people go, and there's always a lead time when someone goes to fill in that vacancy. But we will always try. I mean, I've always said about this, it is for members' information. And I think we started producing this when I was the chair of the Scrutiny Committee, because I was concerned that some vacancies were being managed to save money. But I can assure you that's not the case. These are vacancies in the establishment, and we will endeavour to fill these as quickly as we can.
Okay, colleagues, any further questions on this report? No. Any questions from members of the council, either in the chamber or online? No. Okay, there are no members of the public, so we therefore come to recommendations. Darren, have we got some draft recommendations, please?
Thank you, Chair. Some of the themes from the discussion tonight. The committee thanks the Cabinet Member and Director for attending and answering questions. The committee welcomes the reassurance that the property management system will improve the rent review process and also increase income levels. The committee is grateful for the offer of trend information and background to the reduced conference hire income. The committee welcomes the update and work to improve income generation from events at Worden Hall and is grateful for the offer of further information. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Darren. Are we all content with those, colleagues? Okay, those are approved. Councillor Thomason and Louise, thank you very much for attending. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Okay, colleagues, that takes us to item 8, which is the final report of the Homelessness Review Scrutiny Task Group. And on that one, I will hand over to the chairman of the task group, Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, I'm really pleased that we've got this report in front of us now. And first of all, I'd like to say thank you to the support of the officers, Darren and Ben, have helped us out really, really well in putting this together. And also thanks to the other members of the task group who contributed a lot towards this. The rationale for doing this was obviously homelessness was. We've brought up many times within the Scrutiny Committee that it's a problem from a budget point of view, but obviously from a council point of view, these are some really, really vulnerable people that we're talking about here, and it's actually increasing to a scale where it's probably been unprecedented in more modern times. So it's something as a council I think we needed to focus on specifically. looking at what we wanted to do was look at what others do, what we do already, which is some of the work that we do is fantastic, by the way. Look at best practice and look what recommendations we could come out of it. Look what other councils do, what other organisations do. So part of that was hearing evidence from various different people. We heard from portfolio holders, from various different officers, from charities and other external organisations, which culminated in a homelessness summit, which brought together numerous organisations. A significant number of people came into the centre. It came into the centre here and was really well attended. And I'd like to say thank you to all members who were present and helped facilitate that day. And I think myself, I think the fellow councillors that were there, and also the attendees gave great feedback that came out of the back of it, and with so much positivity in the room of actually having of all the things that we were actually doing and what we could do. And it gave a lot of us a lot to think about, and I think it's something that we may want to look at further. So the culmination of it has been a set of recommendations that are in the report, and I'm sure you've all read them. Now, some of them might be fairly relatively easy to achieve, and some are quite simple with a bit of work. There's a real mixture in there, and obviously some are recommendations and are extremely complicated and extremely challenging, and it'll be extremely difficult for us as a council to be able to deliver some of them or formulate a way of doing it. But that's the whole point. I think that's the whole point of what the task group was set up to do, was to stretch ourselves, to stretch what the council can do, look at the art of the possible, use this report as a discussion point about how we can improve services further, and look at what we can do and how we can do it, even if it takes some things might be done within 6 months, some might take a year, some may take far longer than that. But I think it's something that we should challenge ourselves on and focus on. So once we've dotted the I's and crossed the T's across the committee tonight, I look forward to presenting this to full council, and obviously having a good honest open debate over these, and then obviously to cabinet and whatever may stem from the outcome of the report. So everybody's got the report in front of them, and I would hope we could just sign it off as a committee, and I'm open to any questions if anybody's got some. Hopefully I should be able to answer them.
Okay, and thank you, Councillor Williams, and thank you very much for all your work in actually chairing the task group. And I know, having served on many task groups over the years, the amount of work that goes into these. So thank you to yourself and your fellow members, and to Ben and Darren as the officers supporting it. You've obviously got a lot of witnesses that have come forward, having read the report, and that's helped you to come up with some sensible recommendations. Some of them probably relatively easy to achieve, and some of them quite ambitious in their nature. But I'm personally happy to support this report and to see it going to council for full debate. But I'll open it up to colleagues for any comments or questions. Councillor Gabbard, please.
Cheers. Thank you, Chair. It's a brilliant document. I really think it gets to the root of some issues. The only point I would make is recommendation number 9 about the council should increase its own housing stock. It was something I've looked at before when I was a previous cabinet member for housing. I think rather than the second bit where it goes either by building its own or through purchasing, I think possibly strengthening it, saying that asking for the council to do a review, officers to produce a review on how we can increase the housing stock. I know there's a few issues relating to how much property you can own, but time and time again, and I know some of the people you spoke to, witnesses you spoke to in the task group, that is the issue, is how the number of housing is a big issue that needs solving. And I think that little second bit, just where it's either we can build our own or purchase more, I think if we strengthen that and get the council to actually look at it and go, yeah, we can do this, we can do this option, we can do a mix, and it gives us something a bit meatier that as a council we can look at. That's the only change I would say. I think we could strengthen that and ask for a review, and I think hopefully the Hayden agrees. we could go ahead with that. But I'd support it in either way, to be honest, 'cause it's a good document. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, thank you for that. Councillor Alworth, Councillor Walton, any comments? Okay. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, like I say, obviously there may or may, with that recommendation, and there may or may not be barriers, and I think part of the recommendation is to do exactly that: is look to what those barriers are, whether they can be overcome, and look at in a more strategic view about how we do that going forward, and then that would be up to council or cabinet to decide if they wanted to accept that. How they may or may not want to implement that going forward, and that might be one of the things that comes out of it. But it's a good discussion point that we've got going forward.
Okay, I take on board Councillor Gabbett's suggestion. I think that's almost implicit in this, and I think that's something that could, if cabinet ultimately decides to adopt these recommendations, that's something that they can look at.
Effectively, it's a step on the way to doing it. We're not detailing every step about how something would be achieved here. It's an ultimate outcome. How it gets there, whether it can get there or can't, or how we go about doing it, is for something for a later date. But the recommendation is we do something. I think the recommendation we do something is more important about how we actually get there.
Yeah. Okay. So on that basis, sorry, I should open it up to councillors not on the committee. Any questions or comments? No, bringing it back into committee then. Are we happy to accept this report and recommend that it goes to full council for further debate? Thank you, and thank you again for your work on this. Item 9 on tonight's agenda is an update from another task group. That's the task group looking at the cultural strategy for the borough. And can I bring Councillor Alworth in, please?
Thank you, Chair. As members may be aware, this came out of a scrutiny workshop where I don't think we've ever had a task group before that's actually developed policy to take to Cabinet for consideration. So that's what we set about to do. However, with the appointment of a new leader of the council, she somewhat circumvented this by recognising that we don't have a cultural strategy and appointing a cabinet member with responsibility for it. So if I could commend Councillor Alty for doing that, if I could thank the members of the task group who met to carry out the work, and instead of us taking recommendations to the cabinet for their consideration, we now look forward to the cabinet member bringing their recommendations or their developed policy of a cultural strategy back to scrutiny, so that we can scrutinise it appropriately.
Thank you, Councillor Alworth. It's rather a positive outcome, isn't it? Our work was cut short, but in a positive way. So thank you to Councillor Alty for taking that forward. And thank you, and as a member of the task group, thank you for your chairmanship, Councillor Alworth, in taking that forward during the time that we met. And it's nice to see that something positive is hopefully coming out of this. We look forward to it coming back to scrutiny in due course. Item 9B. Is an update on any meetings and training attended by committee members. Nothing to report? Nothing from you, Darren? No, that's fine. 9C is the Cabinet Forward Plan. Any comments that anyone wishes to make? Good. Everything is lined up to come before scrutiny in any case. And item 9D is a forward plan of this committee, which is attached. Are there any comments on that plan? No? Okay. Thank you, colleagues. Can I thank you all for your contributions towards the meeting this evening? We've been a little light in numbers, but we've got through some good questioning. and hopefully we have truly acted as that critical friend to the administration. And we thank everybody who has attended to give evidence this evening in a very positive manner. Thank you very much. And finally, a big thank you to our officers, as always, for the support that they give year round. Thank you. Have a safe journey home, everyone.